Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Dharma Helper and this is DH Reviews. This is my Season 1, Episode 6 review of Constantine. If you missed any of my other Constantine reviews, I will put links in the description down below, as well as an annotation behind me on the screen to the playlist that I created that has all of my Constantine reviews in it for you to check those out. Also, if you're interested in my thoughts on other series that I review on the channel, I review Gotham, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and Scorpion in addition to Constantine, so there will be links for those in the description down below for you to check those reviews out if you're interested in those. With that all being said, Season 1, Episode 6 of Constantine was called Rage of Calaban, and in this episode, a murderous spirit is possessing children and killing their parents. And Constantine and Chaz are investigating that and trying to figure out what the spirit wants or who the spirit is and all that stuff. And it's a very Halloween-esque episode. There's costumes and Halloween decorations and stuff, and it's a very good Halloween-themed episode. And that's kind of the story. And then the side stuff was with Constantine and Manny talking about the rising darkness and Manny's possible role and all of that. And we get a little bit more of Manny's character in this episode, which like I said in my other reviews, I've been asking for more from Manny and more from Chaz and more from those characters that we saw in the pilot. So we got that in this episode. So let's talk about the characters in the episode. There are 3 characters in the episode that I wanted to talk about. We didn't get anything from Zed or Jim Corrigan in this episode, so those guys, we're going to have to wait for, I think, next week or whatever, for them to bring them back. But the 3 main guys that I wanted to talk about in this week's episode were John Constantine, Chaz, and Manny. So let's talk about John to start off with. In this episode, we get a sense of John's sort of rowdy behavior. He sleeping with that lady that has a boyfriend and sort of doing that bad boy behavior, and I get the sense that that's a defense mechanism for him to kind of let off steam and deal with the weight of everything that he deals with in terms of his career and the devilish type stuff that he has to deal with on a daily basis. That's a release valve almost, and it's possible that this started with Newcastle, or it's possible that it intensified as a result of Newcastle. But overall, I think that that's kind of a release valve for him, like I said. And it was something that I think was necessary for the show to show us, was that the way that Constantine deals with all the blood and anger and the murder and the death and the sadness that he deals with on a regular basis, how he lets that go and how he can continue to move on. And the way that we saw that with his friend, I don't even remember his friend's name, the drug addict, was with heroin and so on and so forth, and now we're seeing that Constantine just self-destructs in a different way. And so that was kind of interesting to look at. And the second kind of thing that was cool to look at in this episode was his relationship with Chaz was a little bit more expounded. We got some scenes with him and Chaz sort of talking things out and hashing things out, and that was pretty cool to look at. But the big thing, obviously, in this episode, the elephant in the room in this episode, is the fact that this case has to do with children and exorcisms and stuff like that, and that's still very much a sore subject for Constantine. And so his big conflict in this episode is how does he deal with that, with a case involving children and so on, and all that stuff, given what happened at Newcastle and what happened to Astrid. I think he handled it pretty well, actually. I was surprised that he was able to keep it together and able to actually succeed in this mission, and maybe that's a sign of things to come in terms of his maturity and his ability to put himself aside for a second and focus on somebody else and focus on the greater good and getting the mission completed. Maybe this win, where he saves these kids, is going to boost his confidence and boost him out of that destructive behavior and boost him into something that is going to be able to fight the rising darkness head on confidently. I think confidence is Constantine's biggest issue. He puts on that brave face and all that swagger and so on, but at the end of the day, you know, Newcastle affected him as much as it did anybody else. And so that was kind of Constantine in this episode. Again, I was surprised that we didn't see so much of the impact of Newcastle and maybe the fear or the trepidation from Constantine that might have come with having to deal with kids again and having to kind of deal with that failure that he did in Newcastle. But the way that they handled it, it seemed like not so much that he was afraid of failing again, but that he was determined not to fail again. And so that was interesting and cool to look at. And I'm going to be interested again to see how his and Manny's relationship shakes out and what they do about the rising darkness moving forward. So that's John in this episode. Let's talk very briefly about Chaz, who's a character that's probably one of my favorites and who we get a little bit more of a sense of in this episode. Like I've been saying, he's the big brother for Constantine. He's the responsible one. He puts Constantine on the right path in the beginning of the episode and kind of sets him straight and puts him to work trying to figure out what blot on the map to look at next. And he, again, like I've said, he's there for Constantine, whether Constantine wants him to be or not, or whether Constantine needs him to be or not. He's there for Constantine because of the relationship that they have and the relationship that they've developed. And when he picks up the Sword of Night, I think the Sword of Night, we get a sense of that relationship in their past, where he talks about this woman and he can't help himself and he's letting out all these secrets, and then Constantine takes away the sword. So that, specifically, that sort of past is something I think we need to take a look at in terms of Chaz and see exactly what he was talking about and see exactly what shaped Chaz into who he is and why he's so protective of Constantine or loyal to Constantine. And I think that'll be something to look forward to in a future episode. But again, a solid episode for Chaz, and I really enjoyed that character and his sort of... he sort of serves as the straight man for a lot of Constantine's antics and jokes and quips and so on. And that, the way that they do that is really well, and those two bounce off each other really well. And I enjoyed that interaction in this episode. So let's wrap up my characters discussion by talking about Manny in this episode, who we get another good sense of in terms of where his head's at and what he can and can't do. And these, again, are all things that I was asking for in previous reviews in terms of, you know, who is Manny, what does he want, how does he operate, what can he do, what can he do. And we learned that when humans were given free will, angels were no longer allowed to directly influence events on Earth. And that's kind of why Manny only maybe appears to Constantine and only gives him riddles or half-truths or things that don't directly influence or don't directly reveal what's going on. And he does that in this episode. He sort of teases Constantine along. And he talks to Constantine about the rising darkness and about how Constantine has essentially been chosen to fight the rising darkness and to stem the tide of its attacks. And we get a little bit more of a sense of what the darkness is and what Manny's plans for Constantine are. The darkness, as Manny describes it, is centuries old. It's ancient beyond measure and powerful. And so it's very dangerous. And we get that sense from Manny. And we get the sense that maybe Manny's afraid. And that's going to be something to look forward to in a future episode, as I said. And the thing that I want to talk about Manny and kind of wrap up here is that, again, we know that he cannot directly influence events on Earth. And but he also says, and he's been saying, and we've been hearing over the course of these first couple of episodes, that the rules are changing. The rules of magic are changing. The rules of the universe are changing, or whatever the case may be. Bottom line is that the rules are going to be different now that the rising darkness is able to do all this stuff. And is it possible that the rules governing what angels can and can't do are also going to change as the darkness gets more powerful? And Manny might actually be allowed to directly influence events on Earth, or more nefarious angels might be allowed to directly influence events on Earth. And is that part of Manny's plan? Because whatever the case may be, whatever everybody thinks, I don't 100% trust Manny quite yet. And I think he's got something planned, and he's working some kind of angle. And is he trying to convince Constantine to stem the tides of the darkness up to a point where it can get to the point where Manny can influence events on Earth like he wants to, but not past that? Like he's trying to manipulate Constantine into controlling the darkness and managing the darkness as a stopgap rather than eradicating the darkness. Rather than wiping it out completely, just managing it, keeping it under control, putting it in a bottle, so to speak, so that he can influence events on Earth and further his plans, whatever they may be. And a line that Manny delivers that kind of leads me to believe that he's got some ulterior motive, believe it or not, is the line where he says that he used to have a whole sort of instrumental section or whatever back in the day. And to me that says that he's reminiscing about power that he had in the past, and influence and respect that he had in the past that he doesn't have anymore. And if he's trying to get that back, controlling the darkness or allowing the darkness to go so far as to change the rules and allow him to get that back might be, I mean, that's what I would do, right? So that might be what he's trying to plan. If Manny does end up being one of the good guys, I would be surprised. He's a good character, and I enjoyed what we saw from him in this episode, but I don't think he's one of the good guys. I don't think that's the case. So that kind of wraps up my thoughts on characters in this episode. Again, really light on characters that we've seen in the past. There was no Zed, there was no Jim Corrigan. But overall, solid episode. And I think the reason that it was so light on stuff that we've seen in the past and referenced in previous episodes was because this was supposed to be the Halloween episode. I heard it on Twitter. I read it. It was supposed to be the Halloween episode, but they moved things around to kind of introduce Zed a little bit sooner. And as good of an episode as this was, as solid of an episode as this was, it did in fact suffer from having moved around and sort of breaking the pace of the season in terms of building things up with Zed and Jim and everybody that was introduced previously. And it breaks the pace of the season, and it suffers as a result of that. It just feels out of place. Not a bad episode, but out of place. It would have been a perfect Halloween episode. But again, it should have probably been episode 2 or 3, probably 2. But not a terrible episode. Pretty good episode, as always. Nice effects, nice storyline in terms of the way that the possessions were handled. And while I did see that twist at the end coming, it was an interesting take on possession and spirits. And it illustrated very well what exactly the rising darkness is capable of, and what the rising darkness can manipulate and accomplish. And the episode kind of reminded me of this video game called Lucius, where you play this little boy who's possessed, and you sort of torment people and kill people in your house. You know, your maid, your parents, and so on and so forth. And that was kind of cool, a cool thing to look at in terms of exorcisms and possessions and stuff, and that genre of spirits and demons. Obviously, the number one go-to scary thing is kids and possession, and you put that stuff together, it makes for a solid sort of addition to that theme of demonology and spirituality and stuff. And again, solid episode. I don't really have any complaints on the episode, but it probably would have been better if it were actually the Halloween episode, or if things were shuffled around a little bit differently in terms of the episode order. Wrapping up my thoughts on the episode here, again, I'm interested to see what happens with Manny and where that storyline develops. And I'm hoping that we see more Zed and Jim in the next couple of episodes, and what relationship they develop. So that'll do it for this review, guys. If you enjoyed the review, leave a like, leave a thumbs up so I know I'm headed in the right direction. If you want to see more reviews like this, subscribe to the channel and you'll see my reviews as they come out. Again, I do Gotham reviews, Scorpion reviews, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. reviews, and Constantine reviews, and some new reviews coming up that I'll talk about here in just a second. Share this video, Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, wherever you got to share the video out. Comment down below in the comments section, or hit me up on Twitter at the DH Reviews. Talk about the episode, talk about the review, talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. I'm interested in interacting with you guys. Now let's talk about the future of the channel. Coming up here is going to be my live stream review of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. finale. That'll be on the week of December 9th. That Saturday at 6:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, like we did with the Constantine review. And there will be some stuff that I want to talk about during that live stream that you guys are going to want to hear. Just again, stuff about the future of the channel, and where the channel's headed, and what kind of content you can expect moving forward. So that'll be a very important live stream again, the week of December 9th. That's Saturday at 6:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That'll be for the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. winter finale, or fall finale, or whatever the case may be. And then the next live stream will be the Agent Carter premiere live stream on the week of January 6th. That's Saturday at 6:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that's kind of where the channel's headed. Again, a lot of shows are doing their winter finales, winter breaks. And as a result of that, things are going to slow down a little bit here on the channel. But I'll talk more about that on the live stream for you guys to check that out for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. In terms of this week, my Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. review will be out tomorrow. And I might have something planned for Thursday in replacing the Scorpion review, since there was a rerun for Scorpion this week. So with all that said, thanks for watching, guys. I've been Dharma Helper, and this has been DH Reviews, and I will see you in the next video.